Good morning. I wanted to take a quick minute and make a video on an introduction to Excel. I know some of you are brand new to Excel, so this video is for you. We're going to talk about a little bit of the terminology that probably sounds a little weird and show you some basic functions that Excel can do. So to start with, these rectangles that you see are called cells, and they're named by the intersection of the column and the row. So we always say the letter first and then the number. I don't know why. Somebody decided that we should. So this particular cell I've clicked in is D4 because that's the intersection of the column and the row. You can type words in cells. And you can type numbers in cells. So you might have noticed that Excel did a little jump right there, and that's because it automatically adjusted for us. Before, it was something like this. This is a common error where you get these hashtags and people think, what is wrong? If I click in it, I can see what I typed up here in the typing bar, but I can't see it in the display window down here. And that's because the row or the cell is simply too short. It's not wide enough. So if you come up here to the side of that column, and get the double arrow, you can just double click and drag it to as wide as you want it. It may not be wide enough still. So a shortcut is you can actually just double click and Excel will expand it for you. Okay, so let's talk about some formatting of these cells. You can format an entire column by clicking on it, or you can format one cell at a time. Either way, you can right click and get down here to format cells, and then have some options. The first one would be that you can change what type of display it is. Is it just general? Is it a number? Is it text? Those are common ones. For a number, you can set the number of decimal places from 1 to 0, a whole bunch, and you can say use commas. This is also, if you click on alignment, the place that you might change it to say wrap text by putting a check mark in there. You can also merge cells. So say you want two cells that touch to merge together. Say OK. And you'll see that this column, when using numbers, has now said numbers will have commas and 2 decimal places. So let's say I type my next number, which is 857.5. Notice it gives it 2 decimal places because I said 2. It doesn't have commas because it doesn't have any thousands or more places. But what if I decide this number, for some reason, I don't want to have decimals, and it's a number, or it's money? Well, you can actually come up here to this quick formatting area and see that there's a drop-down menu with the same options, so it might be faster to click there. And I can say this one's money, so put a $sign. I can also say to put commas here or take them away. And I can increase or decrease my rounding, my decimals right here. So I can increase the number of decimals by clicking on this option, or right next to it, I can decrease my decimals. Notice if you get rid of your decimals, it will round for you according to the normal rounding rules. So 0.5 and a higher is going to bump it up like it did. If it was lower than 0.5, it would round it down. Okay, so those are all different ways that you can format. Let's say that you wanted to merge these two cells together. That's where you can right click, come down to format. Under the alignment tab, click on merge. Oftentimes you might want that wrapped as well. And then you can say OK. So now when I type in here, just types in gibberish, you're going to see that it fills full spaces for E and F. All right, so that's now one cell. The cell's EF4, if you want to think about it that way, because it merged them. Okay. All right. One of the things that Excel does really well is patterns. So I'm going to erase all of this. And I'm just going to come over here and create a pattern. So let's say I type 1, and then 2, and then 3. I can actually come and highlight these, and then come down here and click on this crosshairs and expand the pattern just by dragging down the shading, and Excel will just fill in all the numbers for me. Super handy most of the time. Sometimes though we don't want it to do that, and there's a way to tell Excel to do that. So I'm going to set up a little scenario for a minute. Let's say that we are saving some money. So I'm going to have my starting amount. I'm going to have interest that I earn. I'm going to have the payment that I'm paying into this particular savings account, and then my total at the end of that month. And I'm just going to look at each month. So I'm going to say starting, we have $0, but I get 10% of the amount that's in there. I'm going to write a little formula. To do that, you always start with an equal sign. And then I'm going to say 0.01 times this number. And I just clicked on it so that Excel knows whatever's in C7 is what I'm going to get 10% of. That's nice because I don't have to change my formulas all the time if C7 changes. If I say, actually, I'm going to start with 100, I can just change the amount in C7 and all my formulas will update automatically. So it's really nice to use what we call a cell reference. Okay, so I'm just going to say enter. Notice it's 0 because 10% of 0 is still 10%, or still 0. But I'm also going to put in $100 each month. Then I'm going to write a formula over here that says that my total at the end of that month is going to equal the interest that I earned. So I'm going to click on E7 to reference that and say plus the amount I put in, which is the amount in E7. So I'm not typing in 0 plus 100 because if I ever changed the amounts in D7 and E7, I would have to change them over here too. By using cell references, I only have to change it in one spot and everything updates. So I'm going to go ahead and let that fill in. Notice again, if I click on that, I can always come see my formula up here in this bar. Okay, so now let's just say I copy this whole thing for a few rows. So you can say, what's going on? How come it's not updating? Well, one more cell formula that we need to write first is that we need to create a new starting amount at the beginning of the next month. So I'm going to say this value right here should refer to the ending amount of the previous month. So I'm just going to say equals F7 and say enter. Okay, now notice what happened. I now have a starting amount of 100. So my interest adjusted. It said 0.01 times the amount in C8. So then this amount over here adjusted as well because now I have $1 plus 100. So I have $101 for that month. But I don't want this to just be this month. So I'm going to adjust this to include the amount from the month before. So I'm just going to come click on this cell and I'm going to come up here and I'm going to edit in that it also needs to include this amount plus the interest from month 2 plus my payment. And when I hit enter, you can see that it now shows I have $201 in the little savings account that I'm making. So this is the row that I actually want to create the pattern of. So I'm going to drag it down because now you can see that each month is going to update my total by referring to the previous month's end amount. It's going to increase my interest. It's going to add in my amounts and it's going to give me my total. But look what's happening right here. Remember how Excel is really smart? And so it's created a pattern. It thinks I want to go 100, 101, 102. Well, I'm not doing that. I only want to put in $100 every month. So this is where we can go back and use what we call absolute cell referencing. So right here in this formula, let's see, let's go back to right here. So I'm going to click right here on E8 and instead of typing in 100, I'm going to type in equals E7. I also want to tell it this isn't supposed to change. So I'm just going to come up here and highlight it, hold down FN and hit F4. And it puts in these dollar symbols around the E and the 7. You can also type them in if you forget the shortcut. Again, the shortcut is the function button with F4. But if you just put a dollar symbol in front of E and in front of 7, hit enter, then it knows that this is actually just going to always stay E7. I don't want to create a pattern with it. So I'm going to expand my formulas. So I'm going to just copy the row that I really like here. And I'm going to say copy that down. Now, now when you come, now when you come over, you can see that it's always just going to use 100. You can see that it's keeping that absolute E7 reference all the way down. So that's what we call absolute cell referencing. And all it means is don't create a pattern. Please keep this number the same all the time. even though I'm copying the rest of the formulas down. So I hope that helps today. I hope that gives you an idea for basic functions in Excel. If you have any questions, holler and I can make more videos.